Okay, so here we are 6 years later, Martin. So where would you say you are now? Where were you then compared to where you are now?
Well, I think I started doing guitar lessons with you, I think it was mid to the start of 2010. And at that point in time, I really had a number of sort of lyrics and vocal melodies in my head at that point in time, and not being part of a band. I wanted to translate that from just having melodies to the ability to kind of create music. My aspiration was never to be Jimi Hendrix. I kind of know my limitations as a person, sitting with my fingers and playing, but what you actually gave me the ability to do was to take those ideas and bring about templates of songs. And of course, then at the end of 2010, I joined or brought a band together with a guy called Phil Rainey, and we became the Rainband, really. And Phil, like yourself, is a guy that can make the guitar sing. But ultimately, even with my limited guitar playing, obviously performed live a number of times with the band. In terms of playing the acoustic, I don't do that anymore now, more for the fact that it's a 5-piece and we've got 2 guitarists and a bass player and a drummer. But even when we started the band, ultimately I was able to bring completed songs in that we could build up on a level with the other guys. So from starting at the very start of 2011 with the Rainband, we by the end of that year we toured with Ocean Colour Scene across the UK. So I'd kind of gone from playing in a pub to playing Manchester Apollo and Glasgow Barrowlands, and that was kind of daunting. But I have to say, and hand on heart, had I not had those guitar lessons, had you not given me the aspect of understanding about the ability to play the guitars, even as limited as it was at the start, to becoming slightly more advanced, I don't think it would have unlocked the doors in my mind to kind of believe that that was actually possible, because it was never really my dream to do that. I simply wanted to translate what I had in my head actually into a musical format and have the ability to play.
Yeah, I remember the conversation at the time that you wanted to just translate ideas into actual songs and just have a limited amount of guitar skills in order to do that and communicate it to other people to create music. What's your inspiration for your songs now, and what do you still use that we used in the guitar lessons back then?
Well, I mean, ultimately, when I tend to walk around a lot with either, using my mobile phone as almost to record certain slogans, certain lyrics that I hear in my head, so I can utilise that in a melody aspect, but then come back home, pick up the guitar and put some structures behind it. And sometimes we utilise that when we go in the band. We've got Joe Wilson on guitar, we've got Phil Rainey on guitar, Sam Wilson on bass, and the 4 of us, not being restricted to the drummer, but the 4 of us tend to work on the songs and the ideas. And ultimately I can go in without saying it sounds like this and singing it. I can almost now literally pick up the guitar and go, it sounds like this is what I'm hearing, and they'll play over the top of it and then go, sounds good, but what about this? And it means that it's a fast track to thinking for me. Ultimately, I'm not going in there trying to get them to create something. I've already created something which can be used as a basis to say, this is what I think the sound should be. And it's far less frustrating being able to play and say, this is what I think, than hearing them play what they think I'm hearing and it not be right. And we used to have that early days, but with the development of the guitar, with the guitar lessons, as I say, it's the ability to go in there and almost say, it's not quite finished, but this is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's really good. I think you're a big inspiration to a lot of young musicians as well, because they've seen you go from working really hard and continually building the band over like a 5-year period. I see a lot of young musicians who have that feeling of the music industry is inaccessible, and they're there with like ideas in their head, and maybe they're a singer and maybe they know like one chord. What advice would you have to young musicians if they're thinking about having lessons, and also if they're thinking about getting into the music industry? How would you counter that sense of it's not achievable for them to do that?
Well, I first and foremost say that ultimately if I can play at Glastonbury, if I can play tour Europe with Paolo Nutini with my limited music ability, I would say nothing is impossible. It's literally a word. It's a cliche, but it's true. And ultimately, a lot of the music industry comes from what's in here. Now, I never set about to say, you know, if I'd have put up ridiculous ideas that, you know, in 3 years we're going to play Glastonbury, in 4 years we're going to, you know, tour Europe, in 5 years I'm going to get a phone call from Ricky Wilson and he's going to say, come and support the Kaiser Chiefs. It just is ludicrous. But the whole point of music is that it's like nothing else. It's a communicator, it's a connector. And I don't think you have to be. There are places for people who are as good as Jimi Hendrix. But then there's places for people who almost can translate the feeling that they have within themselves and put it out there, and people to connect with that feeling. Ultimately, I'm not saying it's not about how good you are, because I think you should always be the best you can be. But ultimately, there's a place, the one place where soul flourishes is within the music industry more than anything. And I think ultimately, I would say to younger musicians, do it because it's there first. And what success you have, don't let it get too high. And the lows you have, don't let it get too low. And ultimately always come back to what you were doing it for in the first place. We've had many things promised to us, many things promised to us, and they never came to fruition. And I believe if I was doing it for any other reason than what was in there, then I wouldn't be here now at this point in time. I'd be doing something completely different. But the fact I am here always made me come back to the fact of, do you know what, if it all breaks down at any point in time, I can come back and go, that song that we wrote was exactly how I was feeling at that point in time. And if one person comes up to me and goes, you know, that song, that got me through something, or somebody comes up, as they do now with tattoos and with the lyrics on, to say, that's a tattoo that got me through. Like, we've got a song called Fire, and one of the lyrics is, it's okay to be a little lost, it's the only way you find yourself, my friend. And a girl came up to me in Italy, and she tattooed, and she said, that got me through really dark times. And when you look at that, do I need anything else from music? No, because sometimes it's those people that you're meant to find more than you're meant to find number 3 in the charts or number whatever, because they're kind of hollow values then. They come with a success and they're important, but ultimately the most important thing is the connection with people, and that's ultimately what music does.
Yeah, it seems to me from what you're saying, your measure of success is the inspiration, the level of inspiration that is gained by other people.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I connect with that a lot, because most young musicians, they have this idea of going into the music industry and material wealth and sort of touring the globe is the measure of the success. You know, how would you define success in music? I know that obviously it's like, some of the stuff you've done is phenomenal, but at what point did you feel like, this is really surreal now, this way surpasses what I expected?
Yeah, in 2000, my family are huge MotoGP fans. In 2012, there was a young rider, a world champion rider, Italian rider called Marco Simoncelli, who my nephews, my brother-in-law, they all followed. They kind of idolised him. He was the rider, and he had an accident. Unfortunately, only 24 years old, and he passed. And my nephews were too young to understand why he passed. So he was 5. Jake was 5, and Rocco was 6. And they'd never lost an auntie, an uncle, a grandpa, a grandma. Nobody in the family had passed at that point, and they couldn't work out why he was not in the next race. We'd been booked to play Silverstone for the British MotoGP, and I wrote Rise Again as a tribute song to Marco Simoncelli. My brother-in-law said, you've got to go over to Italy, you can't just rock up at Silverstone and play it, you've got to go and seek permission of the family. So I went on this kind of crazy mission from Manchester to Rimini, Coriano in Rimini, and I met them through the help of a friend. They translated the message that I wanted to get across. And Marco's father, Paolo Simoncelli, said, what are you going to do with this song? We really like this song. It's not a sad song. Marco was, you know, had hair like Jimi Hendrix, a real bigger than life character, and was loved in Italy. What are you going to do with it? I said, well, we're going to play at Silverstone. We've come for your permission. No, are you going to release it? No, I've no plans to release it. Why don't you release it? We want this for our foundation. 2 years later, that song raised €35,000 for them, for their foundation. And in Italy, on a number of occasions, I've walked into certain places and experienced things that I could never have imagined, that we could be at the centre of writing something that was out of a difficult situation that's created something so positive. So the surreal aspect for me really lies in not where it went to in the Italian charts, but more the connection that it allowed people to celebrate Marco's life in the aspect of kind of unique backdrop, really. Been to Italy, I think, almost 6, 7, 8 times each year, playing concerts, being involved in fundraisers, even involved in charity events. And my gut feel really is when you mention about young people and their vision of success, I think it's a natural one. It's understandable that when you first get into music, you kind of, you know, the rock star lifestyle, you know, the trappings of fame to some extent. And, you know, I've toured with people that definitely is real to. But if you're going to put your finger on what I define it as, it's making the connection. You know, with people who don't really speak your language and you don't particularly speak theirs, I try more, but I probably sound like Borat in an Italian sense, and they try a little more, which is often funny. But because you have that trust, because you have that aspect of connection through unique circumstances that could have only come to pass about music, you have a basis for something to almost be in that. Music can take you to the place you're meant to be. You know, the old Stones thing, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. There's an aspect of that, but I always think with that song, it's almost like a slight regret in that phrase. Whereas what I wanted when I first started out in music and what I needed, I've almost got both, but in a set of circumstances that I never realised was possible.
You can never predict what can
No,
happen.
definitely not.
Yeah, it's really inspirational, definitely, the Italy story. And I think you've touched on, I really believe that music is the world language. Because, you know, people say there should be a universal language. It already exists and it's music.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any difference at all with the kind of fans you see in Italy to the British? Because the British are quite reserved, or do you get a different reaction when you gig in Italy to here? Or
I think we definitely get a different reaction.
do they like different songs?
Yeah, I think definitely different reaction. Only to the aspect of, I think that the cultures are slightly different, you know, and also the areas of Italy are certainly different. You know, north is very reserved, south is, you know, you could take 2 spoons and like a, you know, a couple of saucepans and everybody just goes crazy, you know, because they're there to party. You know, you go somewhere like Naples, it's just incredible, you know, and it's not the onus isn't on you to bring the party or the atmosphere. You go to Milan, it's very much like you have to be a big band to kind of make ripples there. And we've been lucky, you know, when we went out and saw with Paolo Nutini, we played the Mediterranean Forum, which is like the MEN, effectively, so it's a huge space. But again, you know, the reaction was incredible. So I think, you know, as a singer, you have to go there with your mind on the fact that if you've got to be on your game to make the night. And with that, some people can feel pressure, but to be honest with you, I've relished that aspect, because I think at the end of the day, if you leave everything on the stage, not clothes, but as in inside you on the stage, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. But don't ever take it for granted, because ultimately I see some touring bands going through the motion of sort of waiting for the bigger cities or not bringing their A game on the night. And I think once you start to take it for granted, you might as well be doing any other job.
Yeah.
You really got to feel it with music. It's very, I think it's very clear to see people who are going through the motions, who may be extremely good at what they do, but what people going to concerts, like myself going to concerts, want is they want that person or that band to come there and almost create fire out of 2 sticks of wood. And you can't always do that, but ultimately to give everything to possibly do it.
Yeah, definitely true. I think that hunger is what makes good songwriting as well.
Yeah.
Do you find your songwriting has changed at all? Do you find do you still have that sort of thirst for ideas, and what motivates you now to write different to before you started the Rainband? Do you have a sort of different motivation to the kind of audience you want to connect with? Or do you still feel like you've got lots of messages to say? Is there a particular audience that you're trying to hit? I guess I'm trying to say.
I think with me, I never really think about a type of audience or where this song would go to. I think what I've learned in time is that I've got to follow what's in there and not dumb it down. I can't go away from the subject matter that comes to me first. I have to follow that through until the nth degree, because I remember about 3 years ago coming off a stage with our drummer at the time, and our drummer was going, you know, what we reflect is we're a good band, we're a good band. And he went, I prefer people to say I absolutely hate that band, or I absolutely love that band, not to go, they're a good band. Because a good band is ultimately saying you've got a good guitarist, you've got a good bass player, you've got a good drummer, and the singer can hold a tune. But it's not something that electrifies somebody or turns people completely off. And I think we were guilty of that, and I think you learn who you're meant to be in time. I don't think you can completely, as a band, you're bringing 5 people together. It's not like you're learning who you are. You're learning who you are as you're reflecting out musically. And I think in time we've done that. I think we've found the confidence that the platform of music's allowed us to do, to say what we want to say. And like with the album that's coming out now, and with the song Storm, you know, Storm is a reflection on the modern day world, and I don't think you can dumb that down. You know, there's a lyric in there, power in the hands of some is like a ticking bomb. And ultimately I see that, whether that's in the hands of Bin Laden, Barack Obama, David Cameron, Jeremy Corbyn, it's a ticking bomb, potentially. It's a ticking bomb. And I think what sometimes can happen is these people can come into power on the right reasons, and then never achieve what they want to do for the reason industry's behind them, or the reason they change as individuals.
That's right.
You know, the example of Tony Blair coming in on the wave of emotion off the backdrop of the dictator of Thatcher was something incredible for this country. But the legacy that was left could have been said that that was the power being abused. And you know, the obviously the hope within the song is power, but power in the hands of love, and we can become one. You see kids on the playground, all different colours, all different creeds, they all play together. It's only adults who make this thing complicated.